Hi there, I'm Stan Baker alongside Shelley Steele and Steve Young, and you've tuned into Circle Forum, where we unravel one of the mysteries of education. Today, we're on a quest to decipher a critical puzzle: chronic absenteeism among students. We'll not only explore why too many kids are missing school, but more importantly, we'll equip you with the knowledge you need to bring them back into the educational fold. Our journey starts by diving into the thought provoking insights presented in a recent news article, and from the significance of direct family engagement to the futility of punitive measures, we're here to dissect it all. Listen to this conversation as it's an eye opener, and we're excited to share these revelations with you. Now, if you're currently grappling with the challenge of absenteeism in your school, this episode can be your beacon of hope. We have lots of free hope filled resources in our website, www.restorative.ca. Be sure to subscribe, and let's get into the conversation with Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. An article that showed up recently in the news states that too many kids are chronically absent, and how can schools bring them back? And we really want to focus on what the article suggests we can do about it. And the first one, I think, right off the hop, educators need to talk to families directly to ask what they need. That definitely fits with a restorative approach to addressing absenteeism.
Being able to truly listen about what's happening for families and for youth in school, and hearing the answers and listening without feeling you need to defend or give explanation, to be truly curious. And you will learn things that you haven't even thought of because it hasn't been your experience as a student.
I would extend that quote from the article. It says, "What does your family need to get to your kids in school?" I would add to that, "What can we do to help?"
Right.
Uh, the quote goes on to say, "Sometimes all it takes is a family feeling welcome in the school." And we've always talked about schools, trying to make them welcoming places. I like the idea of go and talk to parents and meet them where they are and ask them these questions. As soon as I read that, I thought of the one school that we worked with this past year, where they had school liaisons that actually went to the reserve and they met with families on the reserve rather than expecting everybody to come to the school community. Sometimes that's all it needs. Be creative. We've lost that whole aspect of education where teachers will go to families' homes and meet with them there. Now, I'm not advocating that they all do that, but certainly administrators and attendance counselors and some of those people can maybe be flexible on that. Say, look, I'll come meet with you at your house. We'll sit around your kitchen table and we'll have that conversation, because that's where they feel more comfortable, families, rather than bringing them into the school, which is very authoritarian. It can be scary for some people.
If they're not comfortable, if their children are not coming to school, or they're not connecting to you at school, clearly that's not somewhere that they're comfortable just walking into. So to dismiss it, it's very easy to dismiss sometimes and say they're non-compliant or unresponsive, when it's sometimes just a simple switch, like you said, Steve, of where we meet and have the conversation.
If you hear somebody say these families and these parents just don't care about education, maybe
Mm.
it's time for you to talk to some of the families, because it's just not true. Maybe they don't care about education the way it's happening. Make sure you talk to parents if you're going to address absenteeism. The second thing that's suggested in the article is punitive responses are destined to fail. This plays right into our wheelhouse with restorative practice, because punitive does not work, right? Let's
And there's decades of research now, decades to show that punitive responses do not change behavior, but
And
yet we still keep trying it.
yeah, especially for families who are on the margins or they're related to racism, it's they're not being punished. That at that point, it's questionable whether they're punished because they're absent or they're being punished for who they are, because the rates of the punishments for some of those kids are much higher than, say, for white people.
I think for schools to look at the punitive response to any behaviors in terms of suspension, expulsions, to be more inclusive as opposed to excluding kids. All of those suspensions add up to, whether for behaviors or whatever, all add up to part of the attendance concern as well. One of the other suggestions is communities, not just the schools, need to make getting kids
Mhm.
to school a priority. And Steve, you really resonated with that. Chronic absenteeism is a village level problem, right?
Yeah, because we've always talked about it takes a village to raise a child. We say that, and people throw it out, and then they're not quite sure what that means. But it is a village level problem, meaning that it's a problem that's beyond the walls of just the school. It's the culture of the society that we're in. It's the community that we're in, whether it's a small community or it's the city of Toronto or wherever. This is a problem that is everybody's to deal with. If kids aren't well fed, if they're not well clothed, if they're not well housed, that's not the school's problem per se, although it lands on our doorstep because now the kids aren't in school because of those external societal factors. So it is a village level problem because we know that kids are absent from school, not because they're skipping school for the most part, but they're absent because they don't have the supports outside in their lives that really support them getting to school.
And that's at the basic level of food and shelter and care. And if we aren't getting kids to school and children aren't being educated, that becomes there's bigger issues that result from that as well, whether they're getting into difficulties when they're not in the building or now they're young adults and not at school and haven't gained any skills. There's other socioeconomic issues that come along with that as well that impact all of us and the community.
And I think, too, one of the other suggestions is that absenteeism is a symptom that can be solved only by fixing schools themselves. And we've talked about this before in different workshops and different podcasts, too. The idea that absenteeism is also an indicator of other things that are going on.
So those are indicators that are either in the building or outside of the building. So that's where we get back to truly asking authentic questions because you're interested and curious of what's happening for that person or that family.
Kids don't like to come to a school where they don't feel welcome, where it's not a healthy place to be, or isn't inviting. So we've always talked about creating that welcoming environment, that restorative environment where relationships are key and people know each other. Because if you don't have that, the kids aren't going to come. So in this instance, it's a barometer for sure. It's a warning sign. You start to see the attendance figures increasing with absenteeism. That's a warning sign that something's not going on right in school. It could be the curriculum. It could be the teachers delivering the curriculum. It could be what's not in the curriculum.
Could be transportation. Could be lots, right?
There's so many variables, but essentially, if the school itself is in a healthy place, in terms of its climate, the kids aren't going to come.
And I think, too, we have to be careful to take the blame out of the conversation. If we, for example, start saying, well, it's because your classroom isn't welcoming enough, we need to find ways to have the conversation about absenteeism as a symptom and have an honest discussion. What are we doing? What are we not doing? And then when we talk to those parents about what they need and they tell us we need somebody to be more welcoming, then we need to act on that. Because if we don't, we've just basically ignored the input of someone else. And it's been unfair in terms of making any kind of change to this. What I find encouraging and also disconcerting, first of all, disconcerting is the size of the concern. But what's encouraging to me is that there are small things that people can do. And that's part of what this article is all about. There are little things. Not every school is going to be able to do every one of these things, but I would suggest just pick one of these things and just see if this is something your school can work on to make a difference in terms of addressing chronic absenteeism. And that wraps up another episode of Circle Forum. We hope you've gained some valuable insights into addressing chronic absenteeism in schools. Remember, change starts with conversations with students and actions. To discover more about our work and access free restorative resources, visit our website at www.restorative.ca. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe. Thanks for joining us on this journey to create more welcoming, inclusive, and supportive schools. Until next time, let's continue to make the time to listen to the students and to the adults in our schools and workplaces.